Everybody, and welcome. I am so delighted that you have decided to join me in this webinar on the three truths that all postnatal professionals must understand about infant reflux. Welcome. If you're coming in, please let us know where you are, how you work with infants, and where you found me. I'm always wondering, how I'm going to grow my audience and reach more people. A little bit of housekeeping first. I did say I was going to put in a better microphone. Let's try this and see if it connects to the right phone. I think it is actually connects to my phone rather than to my computer. Sorry, ladies, bear with me. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? And does that sound okay? Yes, excellent. iPhone, you're a doula living in Paris. Can you change your name from iPhone? There will be some other iPhones joining tonight, I am sure. But yes, I won't be. I would prefer not to address people as iPhone because that's not really your name. But I want to check. I've got a load of notes. There is so much to get through tonight, and this is just a tip of the iceberg of it. Kate, welcome from South, or you're based in South Yorkshire, a health visitor. Oh my goodness, this audience, ladies, I am so happy that you're here because each and every one of you, I know from your professions, see reflux in infants on a daily basis. Oh, Anya, don't worry. Oh, Vanessa. Oh my goodness, Vanessa. Hello. Reflux Mama from New Zealand. How are you doing? So you don't need to change your name, Vanessa. I can see Vanessa and Diego there. So people are finding me on Facebook, Instagram, etc. So a little bit of housekeeping. If you're new to Zoom, welcome. At this stage, not many people are new to Zoom, but please use the chat box. The recording is going to be me because I'm sharing my screen. It won't be your faces or anything like that as well. And I have everybody muted. I mute anybody when they come in. Maybe Q&A session at the end. It depends on how much we get through. But do please pop your comments, your questions, your opinions, your beliefs, where you agree or disagree with what I say, please put it into the comments. If you're watching this on replay, then by all means, send me an email. Let me know what you think. It's wonderful that you've taken the time to be here and invest in this. When it comes to sharing, my mission is to change the lives of every family that is affected by reflux around the world, and that is in the millions every year. So I have a bit of a big goal. So I'm more than happy for people to share, screenshot things on Instagram, share it, pop it in your stories. What I do ask is you just tag me. I am Baby Reflux Lady on Instagram. I am the Baby Reflux Lady on Facebook. And if you share anything from me, I will share it back and I will share it on my stories. And, this is all about helping parents in the world get access to better information and better support and to find their communities. The last 18 months has shown us that we can really build really powerful communities online. And while a lot of us, me included, are feeling a little bit zoomed out, I had the absolute blissful experience of going away for 5 days last week with some very, very good friends. I still haven't seen my parents. I am gutted. It's like 18 months since I've seen my mum and dad, and I really can't wait to see them. By the time I see them, they'll probably have sold our childhood home. Oh, no, they have sold it actually, but they'll have moved out by the time I get to see them. But I've realized that's not the important things. The important things are the people, the relationships, and the communities that we bring. I love a bit of engagement. So please use that chat box. The more engagement we get, the more questions you ask, the more opinions you share, the better experience it is for all of us. Now, apologies for people watching on the replay. You won't have visibility of the chat box, but what I will do as I go through is I will read the comments so that you actually see what is going on. Let me see. So a little bit quickly about me. I'm not going to spend too much time going on about me because that's not what you're here for, but I am Anya Homer. If you're not one of the few people here this evening from Ireland, you say that like Anya, as in good Anya, or on your bike. I got those back in the States about 20 years ago, and they have stuck like glue. I have been working in the field of infant reflux as a profession for about 5 years now. I first came across infant reflux 8.5 years ago with my first daughter. She was struggling, failing to sleep, having colicky episodes every night for 5 or 6 hours, sleeping, and I promise you, 8 hours in any 24. And she was 5.5 months by the time I figured out a diagnosis of silent reflux. And that was with a website, a really good website, RISA, RISA in Australia. I don't know, I think I might have Googled or gone to the page 17 results of Google or something to find something to explain what was going on. But no doctor, no health visitor, no midwife had ever told me or even mentioned reflux. I did not know what reflux was. It was completely new to me. A few months later, when I did get the diagnosis, it was, oh yeah, she'll grow out of it. It's fine. A few months later, we discovered she had a protein allergy, for which the allergist prescribed ranitidine, which is a medication since removed from the shelves in November 2019 and globally in October last year. And it was nothing, but all I wanted to know was, why was my baby in pain? Why was she struggling? What was causing her to be so unhappy? And not one single doctor, health visitor, midwife, allergist, pediatrician that we consulted in that first 12 months was able to give me any answers whatsoever. I was well in the depths of postnatal depression. I was in postnatal depression. I had postnatal depression for 3 years because our second daughter had reflux as well. And again, there was no help, no explanation, nothing going on. In fact, between my two daughters, we had official diagnoses of colic, reflux, silent reflux, cow's milk protein allergy, sulfite intolerance, or sulfite allergy, and a nut allergy, as well as other multiple food intolerances. But yet nobody could ever answer me why. It was like, I got the whole treatment of, it's your anxiety, your baby's completely normal, they're putting on weight, they're sleeping more than you think they're sleeping. Even though as an engineer by trade, I tracked everything. Like when it comes to data, my happiest place was a spreadsheet. Like absolute data monkey. I'm just going to go to a comment. Stefania Della Rovere, hello. I hope I haven't completely made a mess of your name, but she's in Canada. Ranitidine is still offered in Canada. And some formulations claim the potential carcinogen substance and other ingredients are not in ranitidine in and of itself. That's true. It is a carcinogenic contamination. However, all brands of ranitidine have been removed from most shelves. Other than Canada, I know South Africa still use it as well. But it's not back on the shelves anywhere else. We can talk about that later on. I'm going to do Truth 3 is about medications. Anyway, I'm not going to go into the complete despair that we suffered for so long, except to say that it was extremely lonely. It was incredibly isolating. And it drove me to want to create change in the world for everyone else who had a similar journey. And what I will say is that it is really important when we're talking to our clients that we never compare their story to somebody else's. It doesn't matter what somebody's experience of reflux is. It is their experience. And because it's their experience, it is valid in and of itself. We'll talk about more about that later. I wholeheartedly believe that no parent ever should suffer the way that my husband and I did. And I know from speaking to clients all over the world over the last 5 years that a phenomenal number are suffering in silence and are suffering worse than we did with no answers, no support. I personally know people who have been who've gotten divorced as a result of the stress that their child's reflux introduced into their relationship. It's a big issue. I've learned from the families, the hundreds and thousands of families I've worked with over the last few years, hundreds directly, thousands indirectly through my e-courses, with the book I wrote, with all the free stuff that I provide on media, and the indirect clients that I work with through all of my certified baby reflux ladies. I continue to grow and learn about reflux on a daily basis, and my commitment to halting the silent reflux pandemic grow stronger every day. I know that when we start to listen to clients, when we start to pay attention to what is going on for every single child on an individual basis, we can provide better answers for babies and their families all over the world. And this is going to have a massive direct positive impact on their lives, their parents, their families, and their communities. So, the first truth I'm going to talk about tonight is that reflux is not normal. Or is it? Who agrees with me? Is reflux normal or is it not normal? They should be the other way around. Is reflux normal? Is reflux not normal? And what the hell do I mean by this, or is it? Let me know in the comments. Good evening to anybody who has joined late. You are more than welcome. I am Anya. We are just starting on the first truth. Vicky, you're saying it's common but not normal. Mairead, depends on what you mean by normal. Is it common? Yes, it is common. Patrice, not normal. It is a symptom of something else. Have you been reading my stuff? You're absolutely right on that it is a symptom. Anybody else going to chat in? Come on, come on. You're like running around going, where's my phone? How do I get the chat box up? Don't worry, I will come back to the chat boxes. Especially if you're on the phone, I know that the chat box is not visible on the screen as well. So, it's not normal, Vanessa. Maria is saying it's common when you start sharing your experience, you hear how common it is. Yes, it is really common. Stefania, there is physiological reflux, like spitting up once every few days, but all the reflux cases we talk about here have an underlying pathological cause. Interesting, interesting. Right. So, answer this first. What is reflux? Stephen, Stefania, and your physiological reflux. What is reflux? Any takers? Just because we're on the replay and there's no other conversation, I'll do a dance while I'm waiting for answers. I do apologize. Maybe I shouldn't apologize for subjecting you to my singing. It's not the best in the world, but hopefully it livens it up a little bit. Fluid coming into the esophagus from Mairead. Correct. Doesn't have to be fluid though. An adult can have reflux. Yes, Patrice, you nailed it in one. Regurgitation of food or liquids. Maria, when acid comes back into the esophagus and the throat, resulting in severe pain. The truth is that reflux is regurgitation. Reflux is regurgitation. Okay. Just want to make sure everybody's muted. Stefania, stomach contents passing into the lower esophageal sphincter and into the esophagus. So reflux is regurgitation. It is the movement of stomach contents. It doesn't say what those stomach contents are, but it's a movement of stomach contents from the stomach into the esophagus. That is what reflux is. Okay. The stomach contents could be milk for babies. It could be water for anybody. It can be air. It can be stomach acid. It can be food. It is anything that's in the stomach going into the esophagus. That is what reflux is. Now, Stefania, I think, was mentioned. Yes, Stefania said there's physiological reflux, which is common spitting up, and then pathological reflux, which is like that, which is a bit more painful. So, for formal medical definitions, we have GER and GERD, or gore and gourd, depending on which side of the Atlantic Ocean you're on. Gastroesophageal reflux and gastroesophageal reflux disease. The only difference, according to the medics, between the gore and gourd is that the D comes with marked distress. I'm going to say right now that I don't believe in happy spitters. Reflux is a symptom. It is not a disease. It has the word disease in it, but it's not a disease. It is a symptom. I'm not going to go into all the details around that. That's part of the bigger training courses that I do, because we need to go into that in quite a bit more detail to understand it first. But is it normal? We've had a number of people saying that it's common. You're absolutely right. It is common. Is it normal? We're still on this one. Is it normal? Yes or no? Is reflux normal? Vicky, no, not normal. Stefania, no, it's not normal. Mairead, you'd say no as well. And I'm going to split it here. This is why you come to trainings, is to get the details. Marie, you're not sure. Maria might say yes. The ability of the human body to reflux, to regurgitate, is completely normal. Have you ever hiccuped? Have you ever burped? Have you ever vomited? Let me know. Have you ever done any of those three things? Hiccups, burps, vomits. Yes, yes, yes. The ability of our body to regurgitate, to reflux, to get rid of air or food or something if it's annoying the stomach is completely normal. This lower esophageal valve is not just a one-way valve. It is designed to be a two-way valve. The pyloric valve at the bottom of the stomach is a true one-way valve, and that should not go two ways. The lower esophageal valve, however, must go two ways for management of our bodies. Again, the details are in different things. So the ability of the body to reflux is normal. However, for it to be constantly painful is not. For stomach acid to be present in the esophagus is not normal. For it to happen frequently and regularly is not normal. If it's explainable, so for example, you drink a fizzy drink or you down a pint of beer and then you go, and you get this beautiful man burp. That is normal because you just put a whole lot of air in there that just wants to come back out. Yeah, that bit is normal. Drinking your normal water, like if I was to drink this and then turn around and say, excuse me, I need to vomit that back out, that's not normal. Irrespective of whether it hurts or not, that's not normal. Do you get me? Are you with me on this explanation? Is it making sense? Because if it's not making sense, I need to make sure you do. Vicky gets it. Good, good. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, brilliant. So the ability of the body to reflux is normal. The regularity of it, the frequency of it, these are things we need to look at. And there's one thing I always ask clients. They say, is it normal? Like, is my baby's spitting up normal? If you take your baby's symptoms and place them on yourself, I ask my clients, would you think that's normal? If you as a practitioner take your client's baby symptoms and go, if an adult had these, would I think they were normal? Probably not. Okay, so that's why we go on this knot. So why do I make such a song and dance of saying that reflux is not normal? And it's because in general, saying that reflux is normal injures parents and infants. Okay, and make sure my head is a bit too big there. There we go. Make myself a bit smaller. Good evening, by the way, to anybody who's joining late. You are more than welcome. I am Anya, and we're just on Truth 1. And I do have to go. So, not sure I understand. Sorry, Siri. To explain this, I want you to understand the impact of this statement, all right? Every day, every single day around the world, parents are speaking to their midwives, their health visitors, their doctors, their pediatricians. They're begging for help because they know that their baby is in pain. And every day, these professionals and more, I know there's a few of you here, it's not this is not, and I will say this is not personal. This is the way the health professions are taught in general. But every day, these professionals and others are telling parents, the worried parents, that their baby's reflux is normal. Their baby's discomfort, their baby's pain, their baby's suffering is normal. It's not normal. Just because their baby is healthy and has nothing wrong with them, that they need to get used to the crying and adjust their gut instincts about their child. The truth is, these professions have not been taught anything different. Med schools teach that reflux is normal. They say that it's completely normal. Okay? But we've just gone through that while the ability of the body to reflux, to regurgitate is normal, constant regurgitation is not. Regurgitation that causes pain and discomfort is not normal. But this training is not provided to teach healthcare professionals what reflux really is, about how damaging it can be, about what causes it, and how they could really help resolve it completely for babies. So therefore, these professionals cannot act on information they do not have. Does that make sense? Nobody, we can never expect anybody to act on information they do not possess. Does that make sense? Yeah, good, good. Now, unfortunately, when this phrase of reflux is normal is used, there are multiple high costs that go with it. First of all, excuse me, something from dinner, I think. First of all, there's a risk of physical damage to the esophagus from the presence of stomach acid that should not be there. Stomach acid is not designed to be in the esophagus. If it was okay for stomach acid to be in the esophagus would have a much thicker mucosal coating to protect it from being eroded by the presence of stomach acid. So stomach acid is not supposed to be in the esophagus. What happens when stomach acid is in the esophagus on a regular basis is that it erodes the mucosal lining of the esophagus. And if the presence of the acid is greater than the rate at which the mucus, the mucosal lining, can replace itself, then the epithelial cell lining, the actual cell wall of the esophagus, then gets damaged. And this becomes even more painful. The follow-on risk with this is that after this damage, these epithelial cells, the main cells of the esophagus, the skin-like lining cells, they can regenerate as something what's called Barrett's cells. These are causing a condition what's called Barrett's esophagus. And this is when the cells that have grown back are intestinal-like cells rather than esophageal cells. And this in turn increases the risk of esophageal cancer developing these cells later in life, much later in life. The incidence of Barrett's esophagus in children is estimated to be about 13% of kids with reflux, which is a lot more common than was previously estimated. And while the risk of it developing esophageal cancer in the pediatric population is really extremely low, these changes in the esophagus carry through into adulthood, where the risk then is much more prevalent. It's a risk for a lifetime. So secondly, there is a complete ignorance of mum's experience and gaslighting when any medical professional, when anybody says to a mum who has a baby with reflux, say reflux is normal, it's okay, you don't need to worry about it. That's gaslighting. To ask a mum, so one of the most annoying questions mums are asked by GPs is this your first baby? Assuming that mum doesn't know any better. It's an arrogant and condescending behavior, and it is part of a system of micro traumas that undermine a mum's confidence. It undermines her ability to parent. It undermines her emotional and her mental well-being. To tell a mum that your baby is gaining weight so they can't have reflux is undermining her actual experience of life. To tell a mum your baby isn't in pain, it's in your head, you're imagining it, you need to get used to babies crying, is a micro trauma against that mum's emotional mental health. It's gaslighting her true experience of life, her reality. When I used to bring my eldest into the supermarket, she lived in a carrier every day because the only place she was happy. I used to go shopping literally every day to get out of the house to go somewhere. I live quite rurally, so there's very few places for me to go where I would see people. If I went out for a walk through the woods, I'd be on my own. I needed to see more than just the trees and my daughter. So I go to shops, and every day those gorgeous, gorgeous women at the checkouts go, "Oh, how is she? And how's she sleeping? And you look great. And how was your sleep last night?" I think maybe 3 times I said, "Honestly, I had about 2 hours sleep last night." And the response that I got was, "Oh, you couldn't possibly look so good in only 2 hours sleep. Get out of that. You'll be fine." And she went, "They sleep eventually." Now, unintentionally, those ladies were completely destroying my mental health along with everybody else in the community who refused to believe, who refused to trust what I said was my true experience. I started to question my own experience. I started to question my own reality. And that was massively damaging. I stopped sharing anything of my real experience with anybody other than my husband. My mother told me I was a bit soft. My sister told me, "You just bring your daughter over here, I'll get her to go to sleep." 4 hours of cry it out didn't work, so I stormed back in and said, "Absolutely no way, this is not good enough for my child." Nobody believed me. My health visitor got thrown out of my house when my daughter was 6 weeks old because she told me that she had just met the most stubborn child she'd ever met in 30 years of health visiting. I would say, "Get out of my house." It was isolating, it was demeaning, and it was extremely sad. The problem with my story is that it's not an isolated event. That was 8.5 years ago. This still happens on a daily basis. Do you know what? I don't mind the woman in the checkout in Sainsbury's. Sainsbury's are equivalent to Walmart, by the way. I don't care about them. I care about the doctors. I care about the midwives. I care about the health visitors. I care about the sleep consultants, the baby massage practitioners, the doulas, anybody who works in this field and who new mums trust to have some sort of answer for them. They're the ones that really upset me. Now, it is not the individual's fault. This stuff is not taught. That's the problem. The system is failing everybody. I don't know a single doctor, health visitor, midwife, doula, etc. I don't know a single one who doesn't, in their heart of hearts, actually want to help. But we cannot act on information that we do not have. Oh, Maria, you had a similar experience with the health visitor medical teams. And mother's instinct is real. Absolutely. A mother's instinct is so important. One question I ask to anybody, so when somebody messages me, I get a lot of messages, when they say, "I don't know if my baby has reflux or not." So you don't need a label. Do you think your child is more unsettled than they should be? That's all we need to know. If they are, then there is probably something we can do to help. Sometimes it might be just tweaking the routine. Other times it might be addressing an underlying cause of reflux. But for mums to be able to get that help and support is really, really important. So all of this stuff can have a massive, massive contributory effect to postnatal depression, to heightened anxiety, and to the worry that a mother has for her child, and indeed a partner, any other parent in the home. And this is all on top of usually, in most cases, extreme sleep deprivation, which on its own, we know can cause depression. Now, before I finish on this subject of gaslighting, I got completely abused in a Facebook group of midwives, midwife training group on Facebook 2 months ago. I shared a post on my Instagram feed and Facebook page that the banner, the picture of it said, "Stop gaslighting your clients." I like to get attention. So stop gaslighting your clients. Now, the caption, if you read all the post, was all about what I've been saying, in that sometimes we unintentionally gaslight people just by not listening to them, by not recognizing their truth. For most of us, it's unintentional. But I wrote the post in a way that I was trying to be a mirror for people to go, oh, goodness, maybe I have done some of that. I'm going to think about what I do next time I work with clients and see. But this group of midwives, they failed. They failed to recognize that gaslighting happens at all in their profession. They removed my post after a lot of abuse about how, first of all, was actually, no, there was one comment in there that was, and unfortunately, they deleted the post before I could screenshot it, was some mothers just need to be told. Some mothers just need to be listened to, actually. It's like, no mother, no person ever needs to be told anything. If we respect each other, we speak, we listen, we give opinions, we take opinions, we change our mind, we grow. But we listen. We don't just tell mothers. Like that just really, read that night. I did a rant on Instagram, I think, afterwards, after going, I've just been abused on Facebook. Now, before I go, I asked, just during that post was going on, I asked my followers on Instagram what was their experience, what was the most outrageous thing they've heard from their doctors. And I did narrow it down. I asked the doctors, midwives, health visitors, I think was the thing I narrowed it down to. Before I go, Kate saying she agreed, your experience has been so similar, fobbed off so many times, was told I was tired and you're a health professional. Yeah. So these are the comments that doctors and midwives and health visitors have told mothers. So on them, what do you want me to do? I want you to help. You are the problem, not your baby. You should consider for antidepressants. And then 48 hours later, it's the next one, which they said, you decided to have a baby. Babies cry, deal with it. Like, seriously? That it's okay to say this to anybody? Babies cry, put headphones on and listen to a podcast. They'll eventually stop. Like, what? I've got so much makeup on, I'm not going red tonight. All babies are sick. That's just what they do. No, Tiffany, you're a nurse and you've lived this nightmare in your own community. Yeah. Oh, this one, that I'm becoming a danger to my child, that acid reflux is normal and will resolve on its own. No, like so much of this is just wrong. By the way, there was about 60 replies. These are some of them that I just picked up. I was just horrified when I got those replies. Mairead is saying, even if your baby didn't have a medical problem, how could you treat a new vulnerable parent like that? Exactly. And these are the sorts of people who unfortunately are in our medical system. But there is a problem that when they're ignoring children, when they're ignoring infants, we are risking that we're undermining that child's lifelong of health. Like it's not just the reflux, it's the community around them, it's their parents, it's the relationship, it's the marriages, it's those partnerships, it's the siblings. Like, don't get me started on the massive impact reflux has. Stefania, a mother heard today with a baby failing to thrive and in the first centile was told by the pediatrician baby is colicky and that doctor needs to be disbarred. Yeah. For babies on the first centile failing to thrive needs help and support. And I promise you, there is always an answer, always. So when we start taking reflux seriously and by addressing it early and resolving it, we get to prevent stomach acid coming into the esophagus. We get to prevent the pain it causes. We get to prevent and reduce the incidence of things like Barrett's esophagus and that knock-on risk much later in life of potential esophageal cancer. We get to have happier babies. Okay, I didn't mention this, but babies who sleep, babies who can swallow, babies who can speak. We get to address and reduce the impact of things like ADHD in childhood. All of these are linked. This is the stuff that I train all of my baby reflux ladies on because it's so, so important. When we stop believing that reflux is normal, we allow babies to be happy, to be comfortable in their own bodies, to be able to sleep properly. And if you attended my webinar back in February, you'll know the importance of sleep in infancy. We get to reduce unintentional damage to the mental and emotional health of parents and families and the knock-on impact to siblings as they grow. We get to start supporting people and showing compassion and understanding. The simple act of acknowledging the real and true struggles of a mum and her child, and that mum who's genuinely worried about her child, is massively powerful. For her to be heard, to feel like she has been listened to, for her to know that she's not imagining her experience, and that for her concerns are that her concerns for her child are well founded, goes a massive way to supporting her mental health, her emotional health, and the bond and relationship she's going to build with her child. Does that make sense? Does that resonate? Much. So much. Good. And I will say on this, from now on, please, 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 whenever you speak to a mum of a child who is struggling, just hold space for her. You don't have to know what it's like in her life, but just trusting what she says as true. And I promise you, your rapport with that woman, with that man, with those parents will go through the roof. Those people, any people who feel heard, will love you forever. And Vicky's saying absolutely. Parent mental health's already knocked, especially what you see in the NICU, and they don't need us doubting them. Absolutely. When it comes to parents in the NICU, the majority of them, I've supported quite a few over the last 12 months, the majority of them feel like the decisions are taken away from them. They feel so disempowered, especially with preemies, where everything in the NICU is done from a life-saving perspective. Parents are quickly brushed aside in the emergency of all of it, and probably, rightly so. However, bringing them back in, allowing them to make decisions, giving them the information, the knowledge, the power to make those decisions, or why certain decisions are being taken or being made, is massively powerful. I worked with a wonderful, wonderful couple. I'm literally this week getting their testimony, their full story, baby Dylan. He was born at 24 weeks. He spent like 4 months or something in the NICU. He's just gorgeous. But when he came out, he was still failing to thrive. He had horrific reflux and so many things. And I worked with this couple for a family even for about 3 or 4 weeks. And the tube we got rid of. Well, before we got rid of the tube, we got rid of the reflux, even through the tube, with proper tube feeding. We managed to change the milk and supplement mum's diet so that her milk had everything she needed to support Dylan gaining weight. And in the time we're working together, he was gaining at the beginning about 50 grams a week, which is very little. And by the time we finished, I got a message going, he gained 130 grams last week. It's like, yes, get in. And he's just celebrated his first birthday about 2 weeks ago. He is the most adorable child. And it is so, so important that we start to include parents and that they start to realize, because the most important thing for parents to realize, I believe, is that as parents, if any of you are parents, I'll say this as I am, is that we're the custodians of our child's health until they're old enough to look after themselves. We don't own them, but we are responsible for them. And as long as any parent can put their hand on their heart and say, when their child is 16, and say, I made that decision based on the information I had at the time, and I made the best decision I could, that's all we can ever ask from our parents. We can also ask that as more information becomes available, that you take that in, you process it, and you decide whether you're going to act on it or not. That's all reasonable. Vicky, you've made a conscious effort, even made a competition with the medics. Oh, I like that, medics like competition, to have parents included in ward rounds and included with decisions. The practitioners which make a difference are more well received are always the medics that include the parents and ask what they think, what the concerns are. Absolutely. Even if they can't fix it, they just appreciate being listened to, and it helps settle their nerves. 100%. 100%. To have parents understanding what is going on and why. And Maria is saying it resonates. You felt yourself that your baby was failing to thrive and to meet his milestones because of his reflux. You voiced the issue of reflux being the causative factor. Got rolled eyes in return. Took 5 months for the team to prescribe a thickener for his formula. He's put on an NG tube and he's now thriving and meeting all his milestones since. I feel had the thickener been introduced earlier, we could have avoided the NG intervention. Possibly. Maria, I can't give answers without knowing the full case history. These things, what I will say is every child is different, guaranteed. So truth number 2. I'm really surprised, and I hate the fact that I actually have to say this. Pain is not harmless to infants. For years, the medical profession has basically been ignoring infantile pain. Okay, they've been telling parents it's harmless, and they're even if they're not exactly using these words, things like what we saw in the last session, the last bit, reflux is normal. Your baby's not in pain, it's in your head. That's ignoring pain. Tiffany, you're happy to see this. Excellent. Forward you what you're thinking if infants should cope with. I know. And especially any of you who work in the NICU. This is a really, really big one. A really big one. So before 1980, the 1980s, there was a true belief that neonates did not experience pain. However, research over the last 40 years has been showing something different. And I wonder if there are still legacies of this in med school, because most of the doctors I know, and those who've supported my clients, have kind of, they ignore any of the pain that mothers and parents present. Is this your first baby? Reflux is normal. They're not in pain. They're just upset. All babies cry. Get used to it. That is ignoring infant pain. Now, I don't actually know what goes on in med school because I ain't going. I've never gone. I never intend to, because I can change the system much more effectively from the outside than from the inside. If I was on the inside of the medical system, I wouldn't be able to say this sort of stuff without getting disbarred. But I'm not on the outside, so I don't like. Vicky, 1000%. Repeat heel pricks cause lasting effects. Babies who go on to adult life not being able to put weight on their heels because of it. Exactly. And that's an example. But Vicky, you're exactly right. This is not about specific pain. This is pain. Nociceptive responsivity. Oh, I can't. I'm going to leave out the big words. And I'm going to quote. They say, the research says there are immediate and long-lasting harmful consequences to the nervous system when infants experience severe or repetitive pain. So those repeated heel prick tests, reflux, repeated pain. It's complete ignorance of this reflux, this infant pain, and assuming that nothing needs to be done for these children is bordering on negligence as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, Tiffany, ADHD, one of those emotional development things later on in life. So did you know that pain in infancy directly affects the development, the actual physical development of the spinal cord? Let me know. Did you know it affected development of the spinal cord? Drink of water. No. I didn't know this until a few years ago either. No. We're getting the nose in. Let me ask you a question, okay? If I gave you a definition of noxious pain being something harmful, poisonous, or unpleasant, would you consider the feeling of stomach acid in your esophagus or throat, that burning sensation, if anybody's ever had it, or if you've ever vomited up like bile, that sort of, I can taste it now. Would you classify that as noxious, according to this definition of harmful, poisonous, or very unpleasant? Or frequent vomiting, would that be noxious? Or projectile vomiting, would it be noxious? Or ongoing, incessant tummy cramps, would that feel noxious? Would it feel very unpleasant? It doesn't have to be poisonous. We've already said, we've pointed out that acid reflux, acid in the esophagus, is going to be harmful, physically harmful. But yes, so there are elements of reflux, many elements of reflux, that are noxious according to this definition. So let me read you this quote. This is from 2014. Extremely pleasant, unpleasant, yes. Data from preclinical trials and pediatric research demonstrate noxious stimuli, so unpleasant, harmful, poisonous stimuli, during this vulnerable, this neonatal period of neuronal plasticity, so when the brain is growing, may trigger unprotected long-term epigenetic changes that affect the brain, epigenomic that affect the brain, affect neurodevelopment and pain reactivity into adulthood. Exactly what I think Vicky was saying earlier on about the heel prick test and adults being unable to put weight on their heel. Moreover, exposure to repeated painful stimuli contributes to the adverse long-term physiologic and behavioral sequelae. Pain in infancy has a long-lasting impact on that individual. I'm not going to say child because it impacts them into adulthood. If that's not enough, there are impacts on the mental health of parents who observe their children in pain. I will never forget the helplessness of holding my screaming baby, knowing there was nothing I could do to make her more comfortable. That all I could do was hold her while she screamed for hours. And there was nothing I could do, because bringing her to the hospital, bringing her to the doctor, they all told me she was fine, she was healthy, she was normal, it was me. That massively affected my mental health. Massively. I couldn't see it at the time because of the stigma that I personally had around mental health. And in essence, I think a huge amount of stigma still exists. We are leaps and bounds on from where we were, but we're nowhere near accepting it, recognizing it, and even working to prevent it. But it's impacting parents' confidence. It's impacting directly the bond they form with their child. It's impacting their relationships. It's impacting the productivity of them in the workplace. None of which are taken into account by any of the medical professionals when they gaslight mothers, when they gaslight parents, when they invalidate their reality. Are parents right to be worried about their child screaming in pain constantly? Or for 3 hours every night? Every night? Yes. Yes, they're absolutely right to be worried and to be concerned about it. And I will say, Maria, this isn't usually stuff that I share with parents because I don't like scaring parents. I just want parents to come in. Let's listen. Let's figure out what's going on. And let's get babies, first of all, to a place where they're not suffering with reflux, where they're not in pain anymore. And then give that family the space to create joy in their lives again. But as professionals, we need to be aware of the impact of our non-action. So what happens? Oh, this is another one. Sorry, this paper is from the Journal of Neuroscience 2002. Painful stressors may lead to sleep disturbances, feeding problems, and an inability to self-regulate. We see this in babies with reflux all the time. Long-term effects of pain may include altered pain perception, chronic pain syndromes, and somatic complaints. So basically showing up in other parts of physical representations of pain elsewhere in the body. And repetitive pain in the preterm infant may be associated with attention deficit disorders. It said that earlier on, Tiffany, learning disorders, and behavioral problems later in childhood. Now, while the majority of these pain in infants research is done with preterm infants in the NICU wards, where pain is everywhere, babies are subjected to a lot of tests, invasive stuff going on, it applies equally to reflux, where there is pain ongoing on a repetitive field. We see babies with reflux having sleep disturbances, feeding issues, inability to self-regulate. We see these much later in life. I get mums messaging me going, my daughter's 3, my son's 5. Can you help us? They've never been over the reflux. They still can't sleep. They still can't eat properly. Do we know, is that from the pain they suffered as an infant? Or is that still the reflux, an underlying cause of reflux that's been unaddressed? But these children, these parents, these families need better support. So when we stop believing that pain is harmless and start accepting that we should all be doing anything we can, supporting parents to reduce any pain, discomfort their infants are struggling, we do this by focusing on the root cause of that pain so we can stop it, even prevent it. When we stop assuming that pain is not something to be ignored in infants, we give infants the best opportunities in life to develop properly. Isn't that something? To not be triggered by something, both emotionally, behaviorally, and mentally in years to come. To not carry something for your whole life from infancy because of how you were treated in an environment that you had no control over. Good evening to anybody joining, ladies. Welcome that you're here. Delighted that you're here. We're kind of halfway through. You'll pick up on the next truth in just a moment. But when we stop believing that pain is normal, we get the opportunity to change the long-term outlook for these infants. When they're no longer exposed to repetitive and ongoing pain from reflux, they get to sleep properly. And this itself has a hugely powerful impact and on the consequences for their emotional, their mental, their cognitive development later in life. Massive impact. And believe me, we can prevent the pain from reflux and colic. We absolutely can. So this is a little bit from Lara Clark, a wonderful mum and baby that I worked with last year. So we went from a happy distressed baby to a happy, pain-free one, off drugs with the ability to sleep on his own. Something I couldn't have imagined a month ago. Like, we worked together for 3 weeks. Her, I think she's talking about me, support was invaluable for my own mental health. I can't recommend her enough. These are the sort of stories that I get to share. I didn't do anything. I provided insight to Lara and her husband. I provided recommendations of actions to take, what to do, when to do it, why to do it. They chose to take that action or not. I empowered them. I gave them the decision. I gave them the information. They took the action and they freed their little guy from reflux. And he's gorgeous. He's 1.5 now. I keep following my clients on Instagram, actually. Bit of a stalker, me. Any of that thing on pain new? I'd love to know your thoughts on that before we go on to truth number 3, because we've been here for nearly an hour, ladies. Let me know, has it been useful? There is music in my head. It's not actually in my earpod, it's just in my head. Really useful, Vicky. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Mairead, so interesting about the ongoing issues as a result of pain. Never knew that. Yeah. It's a massive, it's a massive field of research, There's huge amounts of research being done. However, the challenge with research is that research is brilliant, but it takes on average 17 years for proven research to make it into general practice. That's an average. An average. Now, the diploma course I was teaching the last few weeks, it's a diploma in nutrition for reflux and associated allergies, etc. Anyway, we've been going through the nutritional guidelines and all of recommendations. And one of the questions is like, why are we using all the US recommendations? You know, half the class in the UK, actually the class is in 11 countries. And they wanted to know why. And it's like, oh, do you want to know why? So, right. When do you think the UK nutritional guidelines recommendations about, you know, mineral, vitamin intake, etc. was last updated? And they're like, 2004, 2009, 1991. It's like, oh, 30 years ago. There's been a lot of research in 30 years, and the data in the US has all been updated in March this year. So actually, we're going with the stuff that's been revised with a nod to the British standards. However, Britain's not always ahead of everyone. So this is the great thing, is that we can work with the evidence, but not be constrained by the evidence as well. And it's really important. Everything I do is evidence-based. It's not limited by the evidence either. Anyway, truth number 3. Let me see. Oh, that didn't come up. This is a big one. Medications are not as safe as the doctors would lead us to believe. Who agrees with me on this? And why? I'm interested. What are your understandings of medications that are used for infant reflux at the moment? I know we mentioned briefly ranitidine earlier on. Vicky, you're definitely interested in this one because you prescribe a lot for reflux. Yeah, it's hugely prescribed. PPIs damage baby's microbiome. Jenny, you're absolutely correct. That's part of the problem. Vicky, you know, a lot of them, their side effects can be as bad as the reflux or even make it worse. Yes, if you read, so any of the PPI medications, which are those like omeprazole, esomeprazole, etc., can, if you look at the side effects, the common side effects, I think it might be, it's either very common or very common, but it's a lot. Constipation, diarrhea, abdominal bloating, flatulence. You're like, this is what these children are suffering with already. Gaviscon can cause constipation, you believe correctly. However, if you read the patient leaflet or even the EMC, Electronic Medicines Compendium, you know, the information sheet about Gaviscon, it doesn't have constipation as a major side effect. I do polls every 3 or 4 months on Instagram saying whose baby used Gaviscon. Out of that number, how many have had constipation? It's usually about 96%. 96% of babies get constipation with Gaviscon. And that is, it's not reflected in the official data because people don't know to use the MRHA, the yellow cards, I think MRHA, the yellow card system, where as consumers, we're supposed to report adverse side effects back into the system. So they get, you know, it becomes a circular system. We're not told about it. We're not informed about it. Anytime I go to the pharmacy, there's a sign on the wall, I look for it, but nobody ever says, by the way, if there's any side effects, please let us know. We'll fill in this form. Nobody does that. There is, yeah, Patrice, you're right. There is a massive overprescribing of PPIs, especially for very small babies, and especially with lockdown for the last 18 months. Doctors are prescribing PPIs over the phone. It's a massive, massive issue because they're not even seeing babies. They're not visually seeing them on video. They're not doing physical exams. So we are missing things like pyloric stenosis, which a doctor might be able to palpate and feel for any lumps or any blockages, any, you know, little things physically on the abdomen. These things be completely missed. Anyway, this is a massive error being made. Doctors are assuming that medications are safe. And they're prescribing these medications to infants on a daily basis, assuming that they are completely safe. In doing so, they're turning a blind eye to the short, I will say my words eventually. I've got a tongue tie, by the way. Funnily enough, that's why I keep falling over my words. But doctors who are prescribing these medications are turning blind eyes to the short and the long-term impacts and side effects and consequences of these medications on the digestive system, which they alter chemically, and the knock-on impact to the physical, cognitive, and emotional development of these children. We're seeing daily prescribing of medications that are not even licensed for use in this age group. So I am seeing regularly babies who are 2 and 3 weeks old being prescribed these medications. There is one of these medications that is licensed for children from 1 month. I think it's omeprazole oral suspension off the top of my head. One of them, one brand. Most of the others are from 6 months, and many of them from 12 months. But none of them are licensed for use under 1 month. Never mind the preemie babies who are in the NICU on these medications. And I'm witnessing in how parents are really scared to make changes to the medications without the doctor's approval, even when the medications are either not working or they've made things worse. Now, for me to explain properly why I say that the doctors are making a mistake in assuming the safety, the blanket safety of these medications as a group, in this age group, I kind of need you to understand the science of this first. I know it's late, but is anybody ready to get a little bit geeky with me? That's why I usually look at my glasses. Mine are black though. We're going for the geeking? I hope you all say yes, because I've got the slides, I've got my notes. Please say yes, please say yes, please say yes. I've got one yes. Give me more, give me more. Yes, yes, okay. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Mairead. We are getting geeky on this, right? I need you to understand a little bit more about how the medications work. I'm going to discuss PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, because they are the most frequently prescribed class of medication. They are the ones, omeprazole, esomeprazole, lansoprazole, pantoprazole, rabeprazole. Anything that ends in a prazole as its active ingredient is a proton pump inhibitor. In short, they block the action of the pumps, the proton pumps of the stomach, which are the cells that produce stomach acid, produce hydrochloric acid actually. And in doing so, they reduce the acidity levels of stomach acid. The acidic nature of stomach serves several purposes. And the impact of the stomach not being sufficiently acidic means that the stomach now lacks in these areas of function. And this in turn has further knock-on effects. What am I talking about? Don't worry, I'm going to get specific. I'll get specific. Before we get specific on that, we're going to go into even more biochemistry. I want you first to understand the scale of what we're talking about, okay? Our body, the human body, absorbs individual molecules of carbohydrates, okay? Individual molecules. We are talking about a molecule of glucose, a molecule of fructose, molecules of galactose. These are the 3 monosaccharides, single sugars. Each of them is only 6 atoms, 6 atoms, 6 carbon atoms with hydrogen and oxygen attached. So they're relatively small. And our body has to break them down to this individual molecular level so that it can be absorbed. The role of our digestive system, irrespective of our age, is to break down the foods we consume into these component parts. Okay? Are you familiar with table sugar? You know, that granulated, white granulated stuff that we put in our tea and our coffee. I'm going to go for the real stuff, though. We're not talking about erythritol or any of the pretend ones. I'm not going with stevia. Vicky, too much acquainted with it. Oh, yeah, I'm a bit of a sugar addict. However, it is called sucrose. Okay, table sugar is called sucrose. Now, one molecule of sugar is a lot smaller than the granules we get in the bowl. But so one molecule of sucrose is one molecule of fructose plus one molecule of glucose, and they're just bonded, they're chemically attached to each other. How many number of individual sucrose molecules do you think are in 1 grain of sugar? Yeah, so you know that one tiny grain of sugar that you pick up? Actually, we don't pick up a grain, we pick up a spoon of about 40,000 grains. But that 1 grain of sugar, how many molecules of sucrose are in that 1 grain? Give me a guess. Give me a guess. I have to dance for the replay because otherwise it's just like I'm on screen doing nothing. 1,000 from Vanessa. Who's next? Give me another guess. I want some more guesses. And then I'm going to tell you whether you're right or whether you're wrong or whether you're close or whether you're not so close. Give me some more guesses. So Vicky, go for guesses. Molecules 30. Mairead's going large, 1 million. Victoria, I have to count the zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She's gone for 1 million as well. Right. There are 1 quintillion or 1.1 quintillion sucrose molecules in a grain of sugar. That's a billion billion. I counted the zeros on that before I wrote it up. A billion billion molecules of sugar, molecules of sucrose in 1 grain of sugar. Now, the scale of our digestive system and how our body operates is that our body has to break down this 1 grain of sugar not only into the quintillion grains of sucrose, but it then has to divide those into glucose and fructose in order for our body to absorb them properly. Do you see why the digestive system is important? You see why it's important that it works properly, because this stuff is not usable. So our body might absorb some of these molecules at a larger level if there are things like leaky gut syndrome going on. Babies have increased gut permeability. But what happens is these float around in the blood and then they get locked away by adipose tissue going, oh, you're no good, I can't use you. Our body can only use the fructose, the single molecules of fructose or glucose. And then it rebuilds and does other stuff with them. Like your body, we house the most incredible machine. We've got no idea. Seriously, we don't know half the stuff it does. We all possess a brain, yet we've no idea how it works. But this is the scale of stuff that every single person's digestive system has to do on a daily basis, all right? Now, this theory equally applies to lipids, which are fats and proteins, as well as the body's ability to break down food and to cleave the micronutrients. You know, get the vitamin E and the vitamin D from the sun. We get some vitamin D from foods. You know, the phosphorus, the magnesium, the calcium, the iron, all of the I will say the words macro and micronutrients depend on the digestive system working properly. But from this scale, does it make sense for me to say that just because a baby is drinking a liquid, milk, that just because it's a liquid doesn't mean it's directly absorbed into the body? We know that milk has calcium. We know it has probiotics. It's got, you know, depending on whether it's mum's milk or formula, it might have galacto-oligosaccharides and prebiotics and probiotics. It might have human oligosaccharides for prebiotics from mum. It has calcium. It has iron, little bits. It has vitamin B12. It has all the vitamin Bs. It has the vitamin C. It has fat. It has carbohydrates. It has proteins. But just because it's a liquid, do you see that it actually needs to be digested and broken down into all those component parts for it to be useful for baby's body to do what it needs to do with it? There's quite a lot of digestive action to happen first. I just want to make sure that the leaps I'm taking, I'm still bringing you guys with me. I hope you're not asleep, by the way. I know it's late. I do thank you for being here. Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Apologies if you're watching on the replay and you're like, yeah, I said it made sense like 3 seconds ago, but you weren't listening. Makes sense, makes sense, makes sense. Good. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Tiffany, Kate, Vicky. Excellent stuff. So jumping back to medications now. Okay, you're going to focus on the PPIs, the ones most frequently prescribed. They block the PPIs from producing hydrochloric acid, which is the acidic part of gastric juices. The reason we've said that in blocking the stomach acid, we're affecting how the stomach works. So stomach acid is vital for the activation of digestive enzymes. Okay, it's vital to turn digestive enzymes on. In particular, in infants, it activates the ability of the stomach to digest fats. Okay, there's what we call lingual lipase. It's a digestive enzyme produced in the mouth. Infants under the age of 3 do not produce salivary amylase, by the way. They do not break down carbohydrates from the mouth. They produce lingual lipase. This gets swallowed and goes into the stomach. The stomach also produces gastric lipase. It does not in infancy do anything to do with protein or carbohydrate digestion. The stomach is the only place in infants for the breakdown of fats. Approximately for the first 2 years of life, babies have a significantly higher ability to break down fats in their stomach. In fact, they have a higher need for fats, and fats, good quality fats, like not your 15 times cooked sunflower oil from the fish and chip shop. Good quality fats. There's no restriction, and kids under 2 should not be restricted in their dietary fat intake. That's from the World Health Organization. And they require 50% at least of their energy intake to be calories from fats. The fats are not just about energy intake. They're required for the physical growth and development of the brain, which is 70% fatty tissue, the retina of the eyes, and then other neural tissue, so nervous tissue around the body, and the cardiovascular system and its health. For which all of those systems, a solid foundation in infancy is required. When it comes to brain development and PPI use, there are no studies done in relation to children at all. There is, however, a study from April 2016, which outlines a 44% increase in the development of dementia with the chronic use of PPIs in adults. Now, for me, my personal opinion of how I compare adults versus infants, I'm usually saying, well, an adult has a bigger liver, so they're probably able to process things a little bit better. I'm saying an adult has a bigger body and bigger mass size, so they're probably able to store lots of this stuff in their bodies a bit better than an infant. And their brain is usually fully grown by the time they get on these PPIs, which is not the case for an infant. Does anybody know how big an infant's brain, what percentage of an infant's brain, or what percentage size is it in relation to its adult size by the time a child is born? Does anybody know? You don't know. This is really important. When a child is born, so we all know, children are born before their 4th trimester. Human children are born extremely immature. They don't, not like a horse, they don't get up in the first 4 hours and run off. And the reason humans are born early is because of the size of the brain and the size of the head and a woman's physical ability to birth that child. And this is for brain growth. When a child is born, the brain is only 25% of its physical size of what it will be when they're an adult, but yet their head is considerably bigger in proportion to the rest of their body. By the time that child is 4 or 5 years old, their brain will be 75% developed. That's half of a lifetime of growth of brain, physical growth, in the first 5 years of life. More of that happens in the first 2 years of life, which is why nature has designed the digestive system to be fat digestion. Like babies are ketogenic machines, literally. Not only do they get energy from fat, we all get a lot more energy from fats than other foods, by the way, but the fats that they get physically build the brain. Now, when stomach acidity is decreased, which is actually an increase in pH, but when the acidity is reduced because of the PPI medication, the ability of the digestive enzymes to break down those fats into the component parts so they can be absorbed is also greatly reduced. Does that make sense? When we use PPIs, we reduce the ability of the baby's body to effectively break down the fats they need to build their brain, to form the retina, to support their cardiovascular health and the development of the nervous system. If the stomach cannot break down fats, they cannot be absorbed. Stefania, no, they're not in infants. In adults, once babies hit the age of 2, yes, the gut becomes a really good place for the digestion of fats. But infants do not produce bile. They don't start producing bile till between 6 and 9 months, and then it's a gradual ramp up until the time they're about 2.5 years old. So infants do not produce, they do not digest fats in their gut. The only place an infant digests fat is in the stomach. By the way, this research on the digestive system was all done in the 1980s and has been completely ignored by the entire medical world. It was published as a summary paper, bulletin number 64 by the World Health Organization in 1990. But this stuff is being ignored. Just because the research has been done and the research and the evidence is there, doesn't mean it's being used. Vicky's saying it sounds bonkers that we give omeprazole to the little ones, the littles in the workplace, knowing that that's what it does. Yeah, but we have to remember, first of all, the doctors are not trained in this. Doctors are taught disease management. The people who know about medicine are pharmacists. And the pharmacist is never consulted in giving medication to children. And nutritionists, yes, absolutely will know a lot of this as well. However, I've not come across a single nutritionist, dietitian, allergist, or anyone who works with food who has got any of this evidence and any of this stuff about the development of the digestive system on board. Brilliant. I love that, Vicky. I love that's something you bring back and talk about. So when the milk isn't broken down properly, its nutrients cannot be absorbed. They're not fully released, and therefore they're not fully absorbed. The evidence shows us that the use of PPI medications that affect the digestive process of the stomach can lead to nutritional deficiencies, including vitamin B12, calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin C, and iron. There was a paper presented by the Association of American Pediatrics back in July 2017 that outlined that babies who used one of the gas medications, gastric acid suppression medications, so for this they were commenting both PPIs or the H2RAs, which is like the ranitidine and famotidine. So if a child had used one of them at any stage, they increased their risk of childhood fractures by 23%. If they used 2 medications, that risk went up to 32%. An increased risk of childhood fractures. This is because of the lack of the ability, the depleted ability of the body to absorb calcium efficiently, to make strong bones. We know that PPI use in later life is linked to osteoporosis because of this calcium issue. Okay, it has a direct impact. It causes these nutritional deficiencies. This is all evidence, evidence, evidence. But gastric acid also plays a really, really, really important role as part of our immune system. It kills bacteria that we have consumed. Without the powerful acid, the increased levels of bacteria get access to the body. And these can cause, this is all again evidence-based, and there's papers, by the way, on the replay page when you get it. If you want the links to the papers, all the links to references are there. Acute gastroenteritis, community-acquired pneumonia, intestinal and respiratory infections, even after risk the therapy has stopped. So by using these medications at any stage, the body is undermined and there's an increase seen in intestinal respiratory infections. And these are the infant studies, by the way, the children's studies, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth caused directly by the use of these medications, as is, which I don't have this, don't have on the slide, histamine sensitivity. Now, SIBO and histamine sensitivity require massive support and understanding to rebalance. Histamine sensitivity, far easier to rebalance than SIBO. SIBO is a big issue. I have a client, friend, certified baby reflux lady, whose baby, her daughter now, got SIBO because of really shocking management. And it has taken like 3 years to rebalance this child's gut. She's 4. She has spent 3 years rebalancing her gut. And the last time I checked, she was able to eat, I think, about 14 foods safely. 14, not 40, 4 foods safely. At one stage, all she could eat was chicken without her gut causing her massive distress. All because of the incorrect medication being used for the wrong period of time. Are any of these new? Are any of these making you uncomfortable with the use of medications? Let me know. Yes, especially with the respiratory infections. And Vicky, respiratory infections are like, again, it's a big risk for preemie babies when their lungs aren't fully developed. There's an increased risk of necrotizing enterocolitis in preemie babies as well. The SIBO you haven't come across before, Patrice, even. This is SIBO, it's been around a long time. It's making its way into medicine. But what they do with it is they treat it with antibiotics. They kill the gut bacteria in the small intestine. They kill all the gut bacteria. They don't ever address the underlying cause. To address SIBO properly, I don't know what ESBL is. Vicky, if you spread it out, I will. It could be that it's just something similar. Google it for spelling. I could Google it as well, but everybody else is looking. So wonder how diagnosed, you know how SIBO is diagnosed lactose breast test in adults, hydrogen breast test in infants. However, I will say that we don't need to have things tested. When we rewind the clock, we start looking at what's going on for these children. We go, okay, well, they're on a PPI, so that's going to be causing a problem. Extended spectrum beta lactamase, they're enzymes which are produced by certain groups of bacteria. That could be, it could be related, because what you're getting there is an imbalance in gut bacteria. So the byproducts of those bacteria are going to be imbalanced as well. So yes, any of these things we get complete gut dysbiosis. You know, the gut microbiome gets massively screwed by the use of PPI medications. But it also gets upset by the approach to foods that we use, and, you know, pouches. And I know I love Ella's Kitchen, but they're not very good for the gut. They're not very good for nutritional content at all. They don't have any vitamins left. The vitamins have been basically nuked in the processing. And very often we should be looking at the underlying cause and avoiding all of this. Why do we need to risk this for any child? Is that why PPIs are meant to be short course and then reviewed? They're meant to be a short course and then reviewed, probably because the manufacturers don't want to take the risk of the long-term stuff. The manufacturers say courses should be reviewed every 4 to 8 weeks. Even the words NAFSCAN and SAFGAN, which are the North American Society and the European Society for Pediatric Gastroenterology, Hepatology and Nutrition. In a joint paper they wrote back in 2018, I've done this course twice in the last week for my certificate and awareness course students. But we went into it and looked at the recommendations, and they recommend 4 to 8 weeks should be reviewed. Kids are not being reviewed in Britain, not at all. Like, really not getting reviews on the medication use at all. But when we stop using a blanket approach of medication for infants, we stop undermining their lifelong health. We stop undermining the foundation that the parents are able to build in these first few years for life. We're not ripping out the rug from under their feet anymore, especially when these medications are not effective for most children. I will say, there is, and there are, and there always will be some very few cases for whom the medications are the best option in the short term. But that is not the 70 to 80% of children with reflux that we see on these medications. That's really important. Really important. It's not about everybody. So I make no bones about it. The use of these medications in infants is dangerous. It damages their immune system. It damages their ability to grow, and it undermines their lifelong health. However, while all of the approaches in the world say, in the first instance, doctors should reassure parents that reflux is normal, reassure parents, educate them, reflux is normal, try not to medicate because the evidence shows that PPIs really aren't effective over a period of time. What they're not saying is that reflux is not normal. They're not providing an alternative instead of medication. So parents don't have any choice. Doctors don't have any choice when a parent comes in begging for help. Doctors don't know any different. They haven't been provided the education. So where does Gaviners and thickeners lie in this? They're better than PPIs. They are slightly better than PPIs. Thickeners can irritate, and Gaviscon, because it's got mannitol in it now, can irritate the digestive system. Constipation isn't great to be using, but neither of them address the underlying cause of reflux. That's the problem. They don't need to be used. They don't address the underlying cause of reflux, which is all about a holistic approach of addressing the underlying cause. When we stop using medications as an ineffective first-line action about reflux and start addressing and understanding what is causing reflux for any particular child, there are over 30 different causes the last count I had. You'll find posts on my reflux post on my Facebook and Instagram pages on a list of the causes of reflux. At least 30. Might be 40. Like contributory causes and causes. It's not a pathology of its own right. It doesn't have a set list of, it's not reflux is caused by that. Which is why it's so hard to treat. It's why there is no one size fits all. Because the underlying causes are different, and the medications never address that cause. Ever, ever, ever. But when we stop using medications as this first-line blanket approach, we start understanding reflux as a symptom. We start understanding and identifying what is that underlying cause for any child and addressing that. Then we allow children to grow, to develop, to be nourished as they should. They get to sleep, they get to be healthy, they get to be rested. That just feels really powerful to me. I don't know how it feels to you, but that's why I do what I do. It's about the lifelong health of the world. Because people were saying earlier on that reflux is common. You're absolutely right. Reflux is common. Estimates in the UK and US are up at 50% of children born will experience reflux. That's every other child. Let's say 40% in the UK, 20% is the estimate in Australia and New Zealand. But when we're talking numbers, make those into real hard numbers. In the UK, we're talking about 370,000 babies every year. In the States, that's 1.9 million babies. This is based on 2019 World Organization birth rates, live birth rates. In Ireland, we're talking about 64,000. In Australia, New Zealand, we're looking at 32,000. Every year born with reflux. We can't prevent reflux. It is happening. In fact, it's probably going to be happening more due to the stress of being pregnant during the pandemic. The lack of certainty, the increased uncertainty, stresses on mum's body, just physical and emotional, mental, endocrine system, just going wired, also causes reflux. But this is the sort of change we can make when we address the cause. This little girl, I worked with them when they were 15. She was 15 months old. She was on medications since she was 4 weeks old, was struggling with solids, stomach pain and bloating and wind. Everyday life was a struggle. She couldn't sit in a shopping trolley without writhing about in pain. Anya changed her lives. Life is good again. For this, we're eternally grateful. And then she messaged me 3 months on, med-free, eating 3 meals a day. This is a child who struggled with everything. 15 months is a hell of a lot of life to miss out on as a parent. And I know that because I really wish I could forget everything about the first year of being a mother. It was horrible. I hated every second of it, and I didn't want to hate it. But I questioned my decision to become a mom. I genuinely wondered if I had totally messed up my life. Because my daughter had reflux and we had no support, no explanations, no understanding. But this is the sort of change that we can create. But it doesn't have to wait till children are 15 months. We can do that as 15 days. For somebody, 15 weeks. For somebody, 6 months. But that's fine. Whenever it crops up, we can address it when we understand what's going on. So what can you take away from tonight's webinar? If there's one thing that you take away, please take away that we can make a huge difference to the lives of mums and babies that we support without having to be traditionally medically qualified. We already know the doctors don't have this information. In fact, nobody that I know in the world other than me and the other certified baby reflux ladies that I've trained work like this. This is what we do. And we're creating an army of change. The mental traumas and the countless micro traumas that are happening to parents and babies across the world who are being ridiculed for being soft on their children just by people who fail to grasp the gravity of having a child with reflux. These things stop. They completely cease because when a baby isn't suffering, parents don't question themselves as much. They sleep more. And although that sleep is still broken, of course, it's more akin to what humans are designed to cope with. Reflux can be a thing of the past. Babies can be free from the danger of developing mutations in their esophagus. Babies can be free from pain. Babies are not at risk to undernourishment and malnourishment because of long-term medications. They're not at risk of increased infections and gut dysbiosis. The complication comes with knowing how to answer what is causing this child's reflux in any case. But when we take that question, that's the only question that needs answering for every child, is what is causing this child's reflux, pain, discomfort? If we answer it each and every time, we get the right answer for every child each and every time. So the question for you now, does anybody want to know more or be part of this reflux revolution that I'm leading? Where are we at? It's all silent. Yes, yes, yes. We've got hands up. Yes, I love those little icons. Yes, Jenny. Yes, Vanessa. Yes. I will tell you that you can waste a ton of time, energy, investments, taking any other course on reflux and colic in the world from any other provider. And I promise you, in 6 months' time, you will still be no better able to do anything for your clients whose babies have unresolved reflux than you are right now. You'll be able to list off arema coping strategies that anybody else can find on Google. The 10 things to do for reflux, the blogs I will never ever write, because I don't agree with a try this, try that approach. I agree with let's figure out what's going on, do that. Vicky's saying you'd love to know more, but it might be a little expensive for me. Would love to get work on board with the course, but not sure. Vicky, message me afterwards. I would love to get into the medical establishments, because that's where it's going to make a really big difference. However, please don't be put off by investment. There are payment plans. There's lots of things. I'm going to introduce you to Faye later on in a few minutes. But what I will say is that nobody else is teaching reflux the way that I teach it. Nobody else is taking a completely holistic approach to understand everything that's going on, to understanding the underlying anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, the causative and contributory factors and mechanics of what is going on for every individual child. Instagram is fine. You might get a holding email. You might get a holding message from Jamie over there, but I will get back to it. She knows she's been firing things over to me. Without being a certified baby reflux lady, not a problem, Vicky. You still have to refer babies back to the GP each and every time. And the GP, the doctors, the pediatricians will always eventually get to medications. Or trialing milks, telling mums that the breast milk is wrong. It's not, by the way, it's never wrong. Or they'll swap formulas without realizing the impact of going to a high protein formula and the impact that they're doing and increasing that child's risk of obesity over the life. You're not, if you do another course, you're not going to be able to provide moms with much more than words of support, because you fundamentally cannot change anything. You can, and I invite you, if you would like, to apply for the certificate in baby reflux. And in 3 months' time, you can be changing lives. Like those, the story of Lara and Ashley, they could be your clients. It is, and I promise you, the world's most in-depth training for infant reflux. It's not for everyone. That's fine. Many of you will be happy referring back to doctors, not taking the responsibility of actually helping and changing things. And I understand that. That's fine. Even if your clients have been to the doctor multiple times before. You know, better still, you might point clients in my direction. And for sure, you can refer to me. However, I'll be honest, I don't want your clients. I want you to help your clients. Because with over 3 million children in the world with reflux every single year, I can't support them all. If all of my baby reflux ladies supported 1,600 clients every year, we'd probably get through 20,000. Compared to 3 million, that's not even a drop in the ocean. It's not even a drop in the ocean. The whole entire system needs to change. But the certificate in baby reflux is for people who are not afraid to stand up for the rights of the most vulnerable. It's for people who know deep down that the current approach is broken and is not serving anybody properly except the pharmaceutical and food companies. It's for people who have or who want to create a heart-centered business that changes the world for good. It's for people who are passionate about infant and maternal mental health. It's for people who just know that this is the right thing to do. So this sounds like you. I'll give you a really quick overview of what's in the course. There's a page with more information that you'll have. You have probably got the email link to it already, but you can apply straight away. It's a 3-step framework. We look at understanding what causes reflux. We look at reading all the symptoms of reflux. For this, we're looking at like 80 to 100 different symptoms for every single child. And we then look at how to resolve this. So we look at causes, then symptoms, and resolve them. We have to go through this cycle. In the first section, the causes of reflux, these are the sort of topics we're looking at. We're looking at what are reflux and colic, what causes it, what are the red flags, and red flags are so important. These are the ones that are being missed because doctors are doing phone consultations, not Zoom consultations. They're not asking parents, and in fairness, part of it is the doctors don't have the time because they have so many people to get through, to do palpating, to feel, to understand what's going on, to ask parents, have you noticed any of these things? We look at related physiology, so TOTS is tethered oral ties, not just tongue tie, buccal tie, which is cheek ties and lip ties. Genetics, birth trauma, multiples like twins and triplets, and more than that. We look at allergies and intolerances. Under the symptoms, we look at understanding the symptoms and patterns of symptoms, really importantly, that present. We look at formula and food choices. We look at understanding the infant digestive system, and we look at our symptoms there and symptoms that are related to medications, because sometimes the medications are making things worse or masking symptoms that may or may not be relevant. We need to understand everything that's going on. And then we look at specific coping strategies. So, you know, those blogs where you go, these are the 5 things you haven't tried, or 15 things to try for your baby's reflux. Rather than throwing loads of things at clients, we're able to pick out three things that are actually going to work because they address the underlying cause of each child's issue. We look at the resolutions depending on what the identified cause in section 2 was. We go through myth busting. It's really important that you guys understand as graduates what all the nonsense is being said, and that you have the language to communicate why those myths are myths in a way that your clients go, that makes sense. Yeah, I like that. We look at building rapport with clients. It's so important. We understand the medications. It's really important. We do not prescribe or change medications. That's always a prescribing doctor or pediatrician's responsibility. But we must understand them. We must be able to have a conversation with our clients about the medications and empower the parents of every child to have those conversations with their doctors. Know what questions should they ask and why. No problem, Vanessa. We'll get in touch, darling. And we look at special circumstances, things like tube feeding. For any of you working in the NICU, really important section, an entire class on tube feeding, which is really interesting. And a lot of these we do live as well. We've also, so it's not just me, we've got this beautiful team of ladies also supporting and bringing in their additional stuff as well. So there's a page I'll send you a link to later on that gives much more information on each of these and what they're bringing to the course. It's really a fabulous course. And you get 4 months business support afterwards. Actually, it's 3 months. This is what the business support is afterwards. You get 3 months included. You get this, you get listed on our social media. You get monthly coaching. We've got the beautiful, incredible Caroline Thompson is our resident business coach to help people build their businesses, to support you in getting established and growing, or if you're already established, just growing, reaching your audience, whatever the questions you are in relation to your business. Caroline's your woman. We get guest business coaches and wellness coaches in per year as well. So it's 2 calls per month every month. You get access to the back catalogue of events, which is 12 of them so far. Some incredible speakers, including the great Susie Ashworth, who's a mindset mastering messaging mentor. We have the wonderful Lucy Sheridan, who is the comparison coach. We have Kerry Jarvis, who is the audacious coach. We have Caroline Thompson, when she did a session on Brave Enough to Be You, the beautiful Julie Creffield, doing a grand in the hand process, which is a 2-week process to get £1,000. Like literally follow her steps, you get £1,000 from your clients in a week or in 2 weeks. All of this and a beautiful community of certified baby reflux ladies. So if this feels like you, there's also bonuses. There's a building and establishing an online business course as well, which is £300. And if you register by tomorrow night, instead of 3 months baby reflux lady support afterwards, you get 6 months. That's just by applying. Okay, you apply on this link. You don't need to commit to everything. As I said, this course is not for everyone. If you're the perfect fit, if you think you're interested, then please put in your application. Have a chat with Donna, who's our enrollment manager. She is able to answer all of the questions you might have. and to help you understand whether this is the right course for you, whether this is the right time for you, whether you're able to be going to commit. The next course starts on July 12th. So we've got a few weeks to make decisions. But if you think you're interested, please apply. You can either type this link into a browser and go there and fill it out now, or check your emails because it's already in your emails as well. Some people might be asking, is there enough babies to help with? And as I said, there's 3 million children every year. It is an incredible story. So this is Faye. Faye joined in January. She was a nurse. She is a nurse, and she still works as a nurse, but she didn't have any of this. So since, she has set up her own business and has worked since she graduated in, must have been early March. She worked with over 40 clients. She's saying it changed my life in more ways than one. The most remarkable thing to come out of doing the training is the satisfaction you get from it, in terms of feedback from parents saying that their baby's not screaming all day, every day, all night anymore. It's just amazing. If you're considering doing it, I'd say if you're committed and you're passionate about helping babies with families with reflux, absolutely go for it, no hesitation. Faye is just amazing. She has, as I said, she's a nurse. She still has her full-time job, but she's growing her business constantly. And she's starting to look at reducing her sort of nursing hours so that she can support infants with reflux a lot more. And we've got Jen Pritchard. She took the decision. Jen's been a baby reflux lady now for 18 months. She eventually took the decision to run the course and never looked back. She initially thought it would give her support and knowledge from the clients, but it's given her so much more. She has the ability to expand her business and help more families, not only with sleep, but finding the cause of reflux. Part of an amazing community who support and encourage each other and have made some lifelong friendships. That last bit brings absolute joy to my heart, because I know the group of ladies, the certified baby reflux ladies, are just a phenomenal community. They are absolutely wonderful, and they're all committed to supporting infants, to changing lives. And it just brings me such joy to see them doing that. So if you're feeling drawn to supporting families, please get your application in, book a chat with Donna. Let's have a conversation first. I've sent you the email. I didn't do it, I set it up to beforehand. So you have the links in your inbox. But yes, if you apply before tomorrow night, you get 6 months instead of 3 months free of the ongoing support thereafterwards in that community. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. If you have any questions, any feedback, I'd love to know what you think or thought of this evening's session. I thank you so much for being here still. I am so grateful for your time. I've really enjoyed it. I always enjoy teaching this stuff. But yeah, please let me know what it is. And otherwise, I will say good night. Thank you very much for being here, everybody, especially from around the world. Oh, it's been lovely again. I'm going to do some singing. I should maybe put on some music this time. What we do? Oh, we'll do Dance Monkey. You can't hear it because it's on my iPad, on my earphones.
Oh, Jenny, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Really, really glad you found it informative. That's what it is supposed to be. Mairead, I'm very glad you found it interesting and informative. That's literally what it needs to be, as I need to be getting this information out there, sharing it. Oh, I've just realised I said diploma. It's not diploma, it's certificate. My time. Good night, everybody. Good night. I am going to log off. Kate, it has been wonderful chatting. Thank you very much for being here. I promise everybody, I'm just hugely grateful for your time. I know what it's like to give up an evening or an afternoon. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Patrice. Good night. Good night, Kate. Good night, Vicky. Thank you. Yes, do email me or message me. Bye.